Hey guys, Stetson Blaylock here. You know, a lot of people talk about finesse fishing and how it's really effective and how there's all different ways you can do it, and they're absolutely right. Finesse fishing, even though I make a living out on the water and I have to catch the 5 biggest fish that I can every day that I'm out there, I always have a spinning rod in my hand. You can be just as successful, if not more successful, a lot of times with a finesse presentation. One of my favorites is the Wacky jighead rig. Rig it up, I've got this on a 610 finesse rod. It's kind of a drop shot rod per se. It's got a really soft action to it. I don't like a stiff spinning rod hardly ever when I'm fishing. But 8-pound Seaguar and Vizex, and I put my fluoro on my spinning rod and I tie it to braid. I don't throw straight fluoro almost at all anymore. I've got 20-pound Seaguar smackdown braid on here, and I like that because it has a lower stretch, but you still have your leader on there, so it's still finesse. The fish can't see your line. You know, even if you're gonna throw 10 or 12-pound fluoro, you can still tie it to the braid. You go through a lot less line on your spinning reel that way, and you can still be really effective. But I rig it up wacky. It's just real simple. You just slide it on the jig head, and I just like to fish it kind of like you would a regular wacky worm or anything else. Just throw it out there and let it sink real slow. And when you feel like that bait, a lot of times those fish on those banks, or even if you're fishing it offshore, they'll be suspended, and you can kind of watch your line and kind of pick up every now and again and feel for it. But the #1 key is slow. They like any kind of finesse presentations to be fished slow for the most part. Each day is different. Anytime that I try to teach somebody a tip or a technique, I want to make sure that you know that some days you want to work the bait really fast, hop it, shake it, wiggle it, and some days you just want to throw it out there and just let it fall and do its own thing, and they bite it when it's sitting on bottom. It all depends on what the mood the fish are in, and but I think fish always eat worms of all year long. Finesse worms, big worms, small worms, it really doesn't matter. I just think that anytime you're on the water, I'm gonna say probably 8 months out of the year, I have a wacky jig head or another form of finesse fishing rigged up and be successful on it. It's not all about power and running down the bank and making as many casts as you can. It's about covering water effectively, and especially when you get around the fish. When you find an area that has a lot of fish in it, say you are throwing a topwater bait or a frog down the bank and you start getting some bites, and you feel like you're not getting the amount of bites that's there. You know there's some fish in the area, and you want to kind of dial in and dissect that area. Pick up a wacky jig head and go to throwing it. You'll catch a lot more fish than you could ever imagine doing that sort of thing. A question you may have is why would you throw a wacky jig head versus a straight wacky, or putting the wacky worm on a drop shot? And it's not really complicated, but it's a confidence thing. There's certain situations, and one of those situations for me is if I'm fishing a steep bank where I want the bait to get down there quicker, I'm gonna go with the jig head versus the straight wacky worm. I think the wacky jig head, it falls a little bit faster, and it just keeps your bait a little bit more level, and it falls with a little bit better action to it if you're fishing it deeper. Also, one time that I'll throw the head over a regular wacky worm is if I'm fishing it around rock. It seems like that head, it's kind of like throwing a shaky head. You can kind of feel that bait down the rocks, but yet you still get that wacky presentation, and it's just as effective on the head as it is without. Got one on here, but yeah, oh crud, he threw my worm off. The wacky jig head's a pretty effective way to catch them.